And now it's time for our final arts and culture segment of this week, and we have our very own Lee Tae Ho joining us live in the studio. Good afternoon to you, Tae Ho.
Good afternoon, Conn-young.
So now I hear that you want to today tell us about a musical, but a very special musical that you went out for a coverage, right?
Yes, exactly. Now, what I experienced was not just any typical run-of-the-mill musical, but it was a very special Korean-style musical called a ga-mu-geuk. She was a historical Korean empress who to this day remains shrouded in mystery, and she is the subject of a new production at the Seoul Arts Center called The Veiled Empress of 1895. The story follows Queen Min, also known as Empress Myeongseong, the last queen of the Joseon Dynasty. There are no existing pictures of Empress Min, but the story of her past, her life, and her demise is a story deeply rooted in the hearts of many Koreans. It is also the perfect backdrop for a ga-mu-geuk. What is a ga-mu-geuk, you ask? Well, when each Korean character in the word is translated into English, it means song, dance, and theatrical play. Simply put, it is a musical. But it is different from a typical musical, though I wasn't sure exactly how. Is it the music, the acting, or the performance itself? I was so curious, I decided to find out for myself. I was met at the Seoul Arts Center by the music producer of The Veiled Empress of 1895, and I asked him what the difference between a typical musical and a ga-mu-geuk is. This is part of his response.
The biggest difference is that in a musical, the story is told solely through the music. But in a ga-mu-geuk, Korean dance is also used to express the drama of the story.
That's a good answer, but I also wanted to hear it from the performer's side, and I had the wonderful opportunity to speak about it with actor Cho Pung-le, who plays the nephew of the Veiled Empress. This is what he had to say about the difference between performing a typical musical and a ga-mu-geuk.
For instance, there's a character in the production who has no lines and only dances named Chung Bong-jun. I think that in a typical musical, the character and the Empress would interact through dialogue. However, in our production, that interaction is portrayed solely through Korean dance.
Although the story of the Veiled Empress is considered dark and emotional, crowds have been drawn to the fact that the production is not strictly a typical musical, but a production expressed with more Korean flavor through the extensive use of traditional Korean music and dance.
I came because I felt that a ga-mu-geuk would be different from a typical musical and with the hope that it would include more of a Korean element.
The atmosphere at a recent performance was alive with anticipation, and then it was finally time. The strongest impact of the show is the way Korean dance is used to tell the story, but there are also elements of Korean culture woven into the design of the set, props, and costumes, which are a traditional Korean garb called hanbok. The energy is certainly that of a typical musical, but the elements of traditional Korean music and dance that are included give it a strong Korean flavor unlike that of any other kind of production. And that distinction was evident to the audience as well.
This was the first time I've seen a ga-mu-geuk. I've only seen traditional musicals before, but the elements of Korean dance and the retelling of a famous story from Korean history made it very enjoyable.
The Veiled Empress 1895 is certainly a wonderful combination of culture, song, and dance. But this weekend will be your last chance to enjoy this marvelous production, so don't miss your opportunity.
It quite is interesting because we already have a very successful musical called Empress Myeongseong, which made a big hit all across the world. And so this following that, I'm sure it had a lot of burden that it needs to, I guess, live up to expectations. But it certainly looks different that this is a story told in a retrospective manner, where it begins with the funeral of Empress Myeongseong. Am I correct?
Exactly correct. And I think they put a lot of effort in differentiating themselves between the past musical and this musical. This musical actually has more of a modern twist in the backdrops and the costumes as well. And the expression of the story is done through more dance than dialogue and music.
Right. So if you were to compare the musical Empress Myeongseong and the Unveiled Empress, is it, of 1895, what would be the biggest difference?
I think the biggest difference for me was the way that the traditional Korean dance or Korean modern dance was really woven into the story and the performance of the play, because a lot of the expression and the storytelling is done through the dance as opposed to dialogue and just simply the musicals.
Oh, so this one is more, it more has a Korean taste to it, would you say?
Exactly.
All right. Well, thank you so much for that, Tae Ho, and all of this week, and we'll see you Monday with more.
All right.